25. Welcome to our daily reading from the New Testament book of the Acts of the Apostles. We read this book in church in the weeks following Easter. As we can't be together to do this at the moment, we have decided to share it online. The Acts tells of how the early church sought to live our new era, opened up by the resurrection of Jesus, and how they shared the good news of what had happened. Today we hear about Paul's defense before Genesis and Paul's appeal to the emperor. So I invite you to continue on your journey with us as we read Acts chapter 25. 3 days after taking up the appointment, Festus went up from Caesarea to Jerusalem, where the chief priest and the Jewish leaders laid before him their charges against Paul. They urged Festus to support them in their case and have Paul sent to Jerusalem, as they were plotting to kill him on the way. Festus, however, replied, "Paul is in safe custody at Caesarea, and I shall be leaving Jerusalem shortly myself. So let your leading men come down with me, and if the man is at fault in any way, let them prosecute him." After spending 8 or 10 days at most in Jerusalem, he went down to Caesarea, and the next day he took his seat in the court and ordered Paul to be brought before him. When he appeared, the Jews who had come down from Jerusalem stood around, bringing many grave charges, which they were unable to prove. Paul protested, "I have committed no offence against the Jewish law, or against the temple, or against the emperor." Festus, anxious to integrate himself with the Jews, turned to Paul and asked, "Are you willing to go up to Jerusalem and stand trial on these charges before me there?" But Paul said, "I am not standing before the emperor's tribunal. That is where I ought to be tried. I have committed no offence against the Jews, as you very well know. If I am guilty of any capital crime, I do not ask to escape the death penalty. If, however, there is no substance in the charges which these men bring against me, it is not open to anyone to hand me over to them. I appeal to Caesar." Then Festus, after conferring with his advisers, replied, "You have appealed to Caesar? To Caesar? You shall go." Some days later, King Agrippa and Beatrice arrived at Caesarea on a courtesy visit to the Festus. They spent some time there, and during this stay, Festus raised Paul's case with the king. "There is a man here," he said, "left in custody by Felix, and when I was in Jerusalem, the chief priests and the elders of the Jews brought the charge against him, demanding a condemnation. I replied that it is not Roman practice to hand a man over before he had been confronted with his accusers and given an opportunity of answering the charges. So when they had come here with me, I lost no time but took my seat in the court, and the very next day and ordered the man to be brought before me. When his accusers rose to speak, they brought none of the charges I was expecting. They merely had certain points of disagreement with him about his religion and about someone called Jesus, a dead man who Paul alleged to be alive. Finding myself out of my depth in such discussions, I asked if is he willing to go to Jerusalem and stand trial there on these issues. But Paul appealed to be remanded in custody, and the Imperial Majesty's decision and ordered him to be detained until I could send him to the Emperor. Agrippa said to Festus, I should rather like to hear the man myself. You shall hear him tomorrow, he answered. Next day Agrippa and Bernice came in full state and entered the audience chamber, accompanied by high-ranking officers and prominent citizens. And on the order of Festus, Paul was brought in. Then Festus said, King Agrippa, and all you who are in attendance, you see this man. The whole body of the Jews approached me in both Jerusalem and here, loudly insisting that he had no right to remain alive. It was clear to me, however, that he had committed no capital crime, and when he himself appealed to His Imperial Majesty, I decided to send him. As I have nothing defined about him to put in writing for our sovereign, I have brought him before you all, and particularly before you, King Agrippa, so that as a result of this preliminary inquiry, I may have something to report. There is no sense, it seems to me, in sending on a prisoner without indicating the charges against him.